Start. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Dreamforce. Today, we're going to talk about skills that you need in order to build a successful IoT project. My name is Samir Sharma. I'm a product manager here at Salesforce. I work in the IoT group, and this is my partner in crime, Rich.
Hello, my name is Rich Engelhardt. I'm the CEO of Engelhardt Consulting, and I'm here today. I have actually implemented IoT Explorer for a customer and have gone through this, so coming to you guys with that experience as part of it.
Yeah, we're super lucky to have Rich. He is a trailblazer, so especially in this specific topic of skills needed, because he's actually implemented a skill for Jacuzzi.
Yeah.
All the skills built to build out their IoT platform. All right, let me quickly go through the fine print. Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Any buying decision should be based on product that's currently available in the market. All right, so as we start off, what I wanted to do was bucketize all the building blocks for building out your IoT project. The first piece is your thing. This is your device. This is your machine that has sensors. The next piece is the transport, your connectivity. This is where all the data comes from the device, and that data is transported over to your IoT platform. Your IoT platform will enable you to have your devices talk to each other. And then you have Salesforce with our smart CRM. We take that data from your IoT platform, and we enable that with your applications that you build within Salesforce. So with Salesforce IoT, we bridge the gap between the data coming from your IoT infrastructure into your Salesforce applications. Now you can have a better opportunity to increase your sales, build out new applications, new services, and discover new lines of revenue for your business. So there are a bunch of features and functionalities as you start to go through this journey. Things like filtering, things like machine learning, things like data transformation that you're going to encounter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all these features and functionalities and we're going to put them into those building blocks so you have a better idea as to where they lie. And then we can start to map the skills that you need to actually build your platform out. So here's our IoT blueprint. So starting off with a thing, you have your connector. This converts the data. Your data is actually locked in within your device. And then from there, you have your network. Typically, you'll have hardware devices like switches, routers. This is where the transport of the data goes to the IoT platform. In the IoT platform, you'll have typically you'll run into two types of platforms. Your edge platform, which is an on-prem platform. So if you want to do your IoT platform on-prem, you'll typically choose an IoT edge platform. If you want to bring it to the cloud, you'll use an IoT cloud platform. We'll talk more about this. And then you have your application. In this case, it's Salesforce. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to walk through a data flow so you can see how these features and functionalities map to each other and bring value for your IoT project. I'm going to let Rich talk about that.
All right, great, thanks. So as this talk is about a successful IoT project, right? One part is the actual device, as we were just talking about, making sure that you have your devices and all of the hardware is aligned, all the software is working. But another part is, what are you actually doing, right? What is the goal of your IoT project? So to start out, we have a temperature reading. What is that temperature reading doing? Well, first thing it's going to do is it's going to send that data, right, to your IoT platform. And your IoT platform might have to do some stuff with it. Maybe it's in Celsius, but you actually need it in Fahrenheit. These are a lot of those things that people aren't looking at until the very end of a project when all of a sudden, hey, everything's off. Why are we getting a bad reading? It's really not a bad reading. You just don't know it's in Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. And it could be meters, feet, anything like that. And from there, after any transformation that you need to do with that data, you're going to go ahead and send it to Salesforce. And you're going to process that data, right? So is there some sort of business logic that you need to do? Do you want to create a case? Is the temperature too hot? If somebody were to interact with your device, are they going to burn themselves, right? So you want to send them a note that says, hey, do not touch, right? Do not get in. It's too hot. What happens with that process, right? Do you have to send something back? Do you have to integrate with your marketing platform, right? So if we take a look at that piece of data, you're going to send it to Salesforce, and your business logic is going to dictate what you want to do. And after that, as we have here as an example, an action from Salesforce is actually to show a push notification to the consumer and say, hey, don't touch that thing. It could also be changing information, right? Maybe on their device, you want to show an error log and track that from it. So these are all the different pieces of not just the hardware, not just the software talking, but what does that data flow look like, and does it have to go back, right? It's the business process revolved around it to make sure that you have that together.
Cool. Thanks, Rich. So now we've walked through all of the different blocks. We walked through all the features and functionalities that are within each block. We've walked through a data flow, so you have a high-level idea of how these things are all stitched together. Let's go through each block and start talking about the skills that you would need to encounter to be successful. How many of you here are responsible for a machine or a device within your organization? Okay, awesome. All right, so things to think about. What sort of data are you actually pulling out of that device? Is it a temperature reading? Is it a pressure sensor, so you need to take out that pressure sensor data? What are the thresholds that you need? What sort of alarms that you need to build? The data that comes out of that device typically has a proprietary format built by the vendor of choice, right? So understanding what that format is key. And if you don't have a good idea of what that format is, because typically you'll take that format and you'll move it to a known format that the IoT platform can consume, like a JSON format. Understanding what that is, so if you don't understand what that is, leveraging an SI who has a good idea of what that format is and how you would move that to a known format, or go to the device vendor. They will typically know specifically how to take that proprietary format and move it to a known format. And if you're lucky and your device actually does spit out a known format, then you can go ahead and start to look at your device and see, does it have an interface that will connect up to my network layer? Does it have a serial connection? Does it have an Ethernet connection? Does it have a Wi-Fi or cell connectivity? If it does, you're in luck, great. If it doesn't, then going off and finding a off-the-shelf product that'll go ahead and interface with that thing. If you can't find something off the shelf, go to the vendor of choice. They typically have a solution that will work with your device. So now you understand what the format, what sort of data that you're getting out of the device, and also you're good to go because you have a network connectivity that connects up to the network layer. So let's go ahead and start talking about the network layer, the connectivity layer. So here you'll see, put on your networking hat, right? This is where your routers, your switches, your networking devices, being able to script, setting up your networking devices with your network configurations. These are the skills that you'll need on the network connectivity layer. If you're lucky and you have an IoT gateway that holds an application, then leveraging an SDK from the IoT platform and putting on your dev hat, getting out your Python skills or your Java skills. Typically, maybe you'll do some filtering and buffering and transformation there, and you'll leverage that SDK and your programming skills to go ahead and do that right on the IoT gateway. If you don't have that, then you can go ahead and leverage that in the IoT platform part. How many of you have started looking at or are currently using Amazon's web services or Google Cloud services? Okay, awesome. So you'll really need to have a really good understanding of their services, of your vendor of choice. So if you choose one of these vendors, you'll have to know how to provision these services. You'll have to know how to choose which services that you want. So as an example, maybe you'll want to do some filtering and you'll need to use a rules engine. Maybe you want to use some analytics. Maybe you want to use some machine learning. So provisioning those services, setting up those services, putting on your dev hat for sure, getting out your programming skills to build out some applications on these services. This is really the skills that you'll need on the IoT platform, right? And lastly, I'm going to hand this over to Rich, our Trailblazer, to talk about the application side.
All right. So, as we're talking about sending the data to that smart CRM, there's 3 different parts that you need as a business to be able to handle it. One is, of course, your Salesforce admin, maybe a developer, architect. But what is the data modeling? So you have to be familiar with platform events. That's how IoT Explorer actually takes data into Salesforce. And you need a way to trigger off it. It could be a process builder, it could be Apex trigger, whatever it may be. But you need a way to be able to take that data and do with it something, right? In addition, how are you going to display this data, right? Do you have a lightning component, whether it's for your internal users or possibly for your external partner users, a dealer network, a customer network? Are you going to try to start having Einstein help you with predictions? Maybe we can create cases proactively based on other device information that we know from other cases that have been created based on the similar patterns. In order to do that, there are trails for Salesforce IoT Explorer. It's broken out into 2 parts. You have contexts, and context takes whatever your ID is for your device, could be serial number, whatever it is, and places that in context with one of your objects. So that object could be an asset object, right? So maybe you have your serial number on every single asset, and that asset's related to a contact or an account, but it's related somehow to the data that you want. So that's how you put the data together. And then you have orchestration rules, which are your business logic. Kind of like process builder, kind of like flow, in that regard where, hey, if this happens, we want to do this. And you have states for your device, right? So your device could be in a good state, it could be in a bad state, whatever it may be, but it allows you to see all of your devices and what state they're in. And then the last part is, as we talk about making this a successful implementation, you really need that business process, that Salesforce analyst, to be able to help you with whatever teams are going to be interacting with it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, I know, talking about devices and talking about things is maybe tangible, but thinking about what that customer experience is going to be like, I wanted to bring in an example for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about registering that device and what that looks like. So there's a few different ways that a device might be registered, right? So in our example, maybe it's a hot tub that we're trying to get registered, and there's a dealer installing that hot tub. Well, one way the customer, after that hot tub's installed, might go to the app and scan, the QR code and be able to register that hot tub to them directly. That is one way. And when that happens, what are you going to do? You're going to send that via a platform event, and you're going to update that asset record. You're going to say, hey, we now have a registration record. This is the registration information. You might have a legacy system that might also have to get updated as well. So as part of that process, you're not just updating Salesforce, you also have to update an ERP system or some other system as well. And then you don't want that user to register again, right? So if you have a mobile app, you have to know, hey, it was registered, don't allow them to register. On the flip side, what happens if the partner actually registers it, right? Are you going to expose a component for your partners to be able to register devices in a community? And if you are, and the partner registers that device, you don't want the consumer to then have another registration. So what are you going to do with that data, right? You have to send it back to the cloud. You have to update either a mobile app or a web app, but you have to make sure that consumer experience is seamless through that process. And so when you think about that, you want to grab all of your business teams, right? It could be internal users, could be a customer service team. Do they actually need not only access to the device data that's coming back, but do they actually need access to your IoT platform, right? Do they need access to AWS? Maybe your tier 2 or tier 3 do. One of the big things is what happens with marketing, right? What happens if I now filled out that registration form? Do you update account information? How do you track GDPR? How are you actually making this a full solution for your customer so that way when they update information on the mobile app through that registration process with your device, they don't have to go rechange it? Or, my name's Rich, I go by Rich, but my real name's Richard, right? Long name. So maybe you have Richard in your system and I register and now I'm Rich. What do? Does your customer service team contact me as Rich or Richard? What is that experience like to the consumer? So these are all the little things that you want to think about through that process. Above and beyond yes, the actual physical device.
So to learn more about IoT here at Salesforce, here's some trailheads that you guys can start off with. All right. And then we're happy to take some questions if you guys have any.
Is Adam around? Do you have a microphone? We got a microphone. Oh, go back a slide? Yeah.
Sure.
We can go back
Absolutely.
a slide. We do have a microphone, so if you guys do have any questions, we'd love to be able to answer them and help out.
Yeah.
Got one right here.
You have a consulting company, correct, for this?
Yes.
Can you tell me about some of your customers and what you do for them?
Yeah. So I'm a Salesforce consultant, so work with the Salesforce platform, whether it's Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, but I actually help through the process, right? So kind of working with clients to make sure that we're getting the process and then implementing, whether it's IoT Explorer itself, setting up contexts, all the rest. If it's just standard Service Cloud implementation or whatever it may be, but helping the clients through that process, thinking through those different pieces, kind of whiteboarding it out, making sure that all the different pieces are taken care of. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
That was very fast. Just wondering about any specific cases that you might have where you've integrated these things. I'm thinking specifically of like a tank monitoring system that people might have connected to their home or their propane or their oil. Wondering if you've done anything similar to that.
It was a little hard to...
Oh, sorry, tank monitoring is what I'm wondering about
monitoring?
specifically. A lot of people at their homes now have tanks, monitors on their tank for their propane or their oil.
Got it.
And wondering if you can give an example of that or any other things that you've connected for people.
Oh, that I've personally connected, you mean? Oh, I work with a hot tub manufacturer, so connecting hot tub to Salesforce and to consumer mobile app. So for me, that was the project that they were actually the first client on IoT Explorer in production. So. There's lots of different pieces. So
just wondering what you're connecting. Like, are you connecting the
Got
chlorine
it.
level or?
Yeah. So there's lots of different things that were connected. Some of them were like flow switches. Was it an open flow switch, a closed flow switch? We're monitoring temperature if it was too hot. There were different levels. We were also monitoring filters. So one was a filter installed. It was actually tied into a marketing process with Pardot, being able to send filter reminders when filters came. So there were power outages. So that was another one. If the power went out, it would have enough battery backup to send a message to the IoT cloud to say, hey, by the way, you lost power. And we'd be able to send that message out to the customer via Pardot. It says, hey, by the way, you lost power. You might want to check. So, yeah.
Okay, we got time for one more
Take
question.
one more question.
Lucky last.
Thank you. So one question is that so far what I have seen is that you gather the IoT data, which will be used to trigger CRM workflow in the back end. That's one directional. Is it possible that the CRM workflow figure out that I have to change, let's say, change the switch on the device a little bit so I can do a revert communication to the device and say, remote control that thing for a little bit? Or
Yeah, good question. You can do that from the CRM. At that point, you have to kind of take a look at are there any rules about being able to do that? So one of the things that we did help implement was a self-diagnostic that the dealer could be able to go to, and they'd go to the partner community, they'd click on a button, and it would actually trigger the tub to turn on, go through the diagnostics, make sure that the pumps were working, make sure that all the rest were working. So it does come back. You do have to be careful, though, to make sure that they're legally allowed to do it. So you might have a disclaimer that they might have to approve or something like that. So as GDPR is coming, as all of that's here, you do have to be very careful with that. But yes, I mean there are great use cases like that where a dealer sees something's wrong, they're trying to understand, so they run a self-test, and that way they can get some of that data back before having to go on-site to that consumer. If they see, hey, pump 3's out, they run that self-test, now they have the pump with them instead of having to go back and forth. So it can actually help improve your service back to the consumer as well. Yeah.
Thank
Great
you
question.
very much. We
Thank you,
really
everyone.
appreciate you guys' time. If you have any more questions, we'll be down here. Take care.